Electrocast.
What's up, y'all? It's Joe Budden. It's my favorite part of the holidays, Prize Picks. The best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. Join now because this holiday season, Prize Picks is giving millions in player rewards.
Download the Prize Picks app today and use code TACKLE and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code TACKLE on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
There's a change happening in the way we live, the way we work, the way we spend our money and make our decisions. We are evolving to be more conscious in our actions in a way that serves the world and makes it a better place. Welcome to the Ethical Evolution. The Ethical Evolution podcast is brought to you by Ethical Change Agency. I'm Bindi, I'm the founder, and my mission is to help ethical entrepreneurs and holistic healers to find their voice through spiritual coaching and podcasting. I'm honoured to bring you the stories of those who create change through healing, kindness, innovation, purpose, and spirit. Understanding that to create collective change, we need to be the change. It all begins with us. Hey, before we get into this episode, I just wanted to let you know that you can now grab my album of guided meditations. It's called Sourced by Spirit, and it's on all streaming platforms, including Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, Tidal, YouTube Music, and many more. There's 11 guided meditations ranging from 4 minutes through to 10 minutes to help you reset your mind and your body at any time. Okay, now let's get on with the show. Sydney Campos is an intuitive energy healer, strategic advisor, 3-time founder and facilitator with over a decade of expertise guiding visionaries, leaders, and creatives on transformative embodiment journeys. As the best-selling author of the Empath Experience, What to Do When You Feel Everything, and I'm Ascending, Now What? Sydney has empowered thousands globally in authenticity, energy mastery, and purpose. Since 2012, she has supported hundreds of visionary leaders through mentorship and courses, initiated intuitive facilitators through Soul Source training, and curated life-changing retreats and events worldwide. Her work catalyzes profound journeys in embodiment, visionary leadership, holistic well-being, and spiritual expansion. As an entrepreneur, Sydney has raised over $1 million for various ventures, including a new social media template featured in Forbes and the 2019 Visionary Leadership Convergence Odyssey. Known for her highly attuned emergent approach, Sydney's offerings inspire co-creators to reconnect with their true selves, unlock their potential, and cultivate deep purpose and fulfillment. I hope you enjoy the immersive, innovative, and thought-provoking conversation that Sydney and I explore in search of the change we really want to see in the world. Welcome, Sydney, to the Ethical Evolution.
Thank you. I love it. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm excited to have you with us today. Now, you're joining us from New York, all the way on the other side of the world. Can you tell us, for those people who've been living under a rock and don't know who you are, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
You're so funny. Oh my, what am I doing today? Well, right now I am building a new AI startup in New York called Mattermore, and it's all about creating a new future of work using AI that's very human-centric and designed to empower leaders to become more effective collaborators, communicators, to especially empower managers and people who are responsible for others to just really become the leaders that we need, especially in times of such rapid change, transformation, and technological advancement. So that's something I'm excited about, kind of brought me back to New York these last few months. And then in addition to that, for the last 10 years, I've been a coach, energy healer, intuitive advisor, retreat host. I've written some books about energy, consciousness, embodiment. And I mean, really at the end of the day, I'm just here to help people become more of who they really are.
And just from what you said there, there's a million places I can take us. But one of the things that stood out to me about you, obviously, you're an intuitive psychic energy healer. Now, for people listening, they're probably going, "What the hell is that?" Can you go ahead and tell us what that is and what's involved in that?
Yeah, we're all intuitive. We all have the capacity to be very intuitive, I would say multidimensional beings. Some people call it ADHD. This is now a really common, diagnosis that a lot of people toss around. And I'm like, yeah. And another word for that, in my experience, is multidimensional, and have the ability to really track different layers of information and data and sense information and perception. And this is just awakening in all of us now. It's just a part of evolving. It's a part of our consciousness expanding. And so my journey with that has been, non-linear, of course, but it really started with a spiritual awakening in 2011, where I got sober from drugs and alcohol, which I had been using to really cope with a lot of trauma and psychic sensitivity that I didn't know how to manage. And I just found my way through meditation and yoga and energy healing and really anything to help me feel better, because I had so much anxiety. And I was very disassociated, just really not in my body. And then, I just started to learn all about energy, and I started to feel better, and then I started to become a healer and help other people to feel better. And now it's fun being asked a question like this, because to me, intuition is the most normal thing in the world. It's so practical. It's something that I love to help people understand about themselves, so they can start to feel more connected in their lives. They can start to feel more tuned in with their creative capacity. They can start to feel more of, what is their authentic vision for their life? What do they really care about? What do they stand for? When do they feel most alive? These are all facets of our, intuition that are wanting to really wake up in us and help guide us into more alignment with our purpose.
Yeah, and I've just come from another conversation actually with someone this morning who is into astrology, and we were talking about intuition and how it can change your whole life once you've developed that skill within yourself. Obviously it starts with consciousness and awareness, because there's so many of us, we're just not in touch with ourselves and who we are and why we're here and all the energy that's within us and that impacts each other. And, when we can do that, like, it just changes your whole outlook on life, how you make decisions, and it's interesting that you also mentioned AI, and you're doing an AI startup. How do you marry AI and energy to make a change in business?
Such a good question. Well, the cool thing about this company is I'm not the founder or the CEO, which I'm so relieved by, because I've been in startups and I've been a founder for 10 years and I love that. I love creating vision and working with people, also leading, the new technological revolution and building the new infrastructure we need for a more thriving, experience on this planet. And so I magically found my team, Mattermore, and how we are really integrating energy and AI, and I would even say intuition. There's a huge opportunity right now, actually, for people building, any kind of technology product, but certainly within AI, to really stay in touch with our humanity and to not give power away to technology to fix us, or to fix the problems that are inherently, rooted in a lot of the ways that we've been conditioned to relate, to lead, to communicate. And really my belief is that AI is something that we can really use to clear out a lot of our bandwidth, that we know doing things we no longer need to do. We can delegate to the AI to take care of all the admin and just busy work and things that don't really require human critical thinking and specific skills that can only be done by a person. And then with this extra bandwidth, humans are then able to optimize their energetic capacity and develop their intuitive capacity more and their relational capacity to really thrive in relationships and collaboration and, they're in our own generative capacity to create the things that we really wish existed. And so we're building AI in a way that is really intended to empower humans, not just AI to take over everything and fix everything and, become, a replacement for our human, genius and inherent capacities that we really want to be cultivating. And it's a big challenge right now. There's a lot of people that get excited about, like AI is going to solve our problems. And, one of our co-founders calls it the techno-productive optimism myth. That, oh, we're going to become so productive and efficient, and that's going to solve all of our problems. And meanwhile, we have a loneliness epidemic on the planet, and people are really stressed out and burnt out. And, toxic work culture is a huge problem in America. I don't know about in Australia, but I mean, I imagine not too different. People are really suffering at work where they're showing up every day. And then in life in general, there's a big crisis of purpose, why are we alive? What are we connected to? And there's this awakening happening, whether you like it or not, it's happening. And there's a crisis of leadership. Where do we turn for guidance and who can we trust? And actually a lot of what I found in my own path is it's a calling to look to our own inner leadership and really ask, wait a minute, like, where can I take my power back and really cultivate my energy in such a way that I, really understand what is it that I'm here for? What do I value? What's important to me? What choices am I making? What am I empowering in the world that I actually don't agree with, that, I actually gotta stand for? And so these are some of the awakenings, certainly happening in America right now. We're coming into an election. This is very heightened anxiety everywhere all around here. And I'm in New York City, so it's kind of like an epicenter of this. It's kind of wild contrast.
Yeah. And, there's with AI, this week I actually attended the Adobe Creativity Conference, and they were, well, not in person, but, virtually.
I
but
love Adobe. They're doing such great work.
Such good stuff. And it was interesting to see how they've integrated AI into their tools in a way that one makes us more productive, saves us a lot of time, but it's not taking away the human element. And I think a lot of people do get a bit scared about AI. They think, oh, it's a robot who's going to replace me, it's going to take my job. But really, it can do so much. And I think, again, AI has an energy in it. It's the energy we give it and how we let it enable things in our life. And I really saw that, and I was like, damn, like I was so excited about it because – I was like, man, there's like so many hours of life back that we would have been manually doing things before. Like you're saying, we're getting our genius back.
Mm-hmm. There's this really cool term we use in Mattermore, and then in some of the other conversations I'm having with just, the people that are really pioneering this new era that we're all emerging into. And the term, there's a lot of talk about generative AI and ChatGPT and kind of like the big players that are really owning the market right now. And then there's these other terms of like reflective AI and integrative AI and, building AI and relating to AI in such a way that, we are just really consciously, intentionally using the technology, again, to like empower ourselves, to empower our innate genius, to know first and foremost that, wait a minute, I always say, we are the ultimate technology, human creativity, human critical thinking, human curiosity. Technology will never replace this. And then how do we build these, this new infrastructure in a way that just really supports us to enhance what we already have, and mainly by, again, taking things off our plate that are no longer needed for us to do. And then another cool thing we're building, our models are trained with behavior science. That's another way that we can really build AI with kind of an energetic optimization lens, right? So all of the models in this Copilot to support managers are trained with the leading edge, like leadership and development, performance science and behavior science, to really, understand like because we know we have bodies of scientific work and academic research that know, how do we optimize human performance, and how do we optimize effective communication, and how do we support people to develop more healthy habits, in their work, but in their lives as well. And what are ways that we can incentivize those transformations and changes in like more easy, accessible ways, that become more a normal part of our lives, that don't have to take maybe like a crisis or a wake-up call for someone to finally be willing to, go through that journey, that instead we can just provide the resource within the flow of work that someone's doing. So it just becomes more of a normal resource or support for them. And then they're changing and they're transforming and, having better relationships, having better collaboration, having more impactful, experiences of really listening and being heard and acknowledging each other, having more trust built within a team and within corporate cultures and all workplaces just becomes the norm. And then what kind of world do we live in when, most people have a job, even if you're an entrepreneur, you're working with teams. But I'm excited about what we're building because it's like this opportunity to really change these core structures of organizations. And I imagine the ripple effect, right, of all these people working within these organizations that then get the support. And then how does that then ripple into our society at large?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I had a message come through as you were talking, and it basically was, will AI become technology-driven intuition?
Interesting. My feeling is no, because we can't replace intuition with anything. Intuition, my understanding is, intuition is so innately wired within the human body. And some would even say, this has been my experience, and I'll use my language that works for me. That's, the voice of your soul. It's like how your being is communicating, and it's usually the thing that it speaks very quickly and sometimes so subtly. That's why it can be hard for people when they're starting to learn to access their intuition, to feel that subtlety. And it may speak through sensation. It may speak through a gut feeling. We're all wired differently.
Yeah.
And then it's the voice of the rational mind, or the analytical mind, or the judgmental critical mind, that is usually much more conditioned in us by nature of, where we grew up or where we were culturally, developing, and particularly Western, the Western world. And that it usually is a much louder voice that we're more used to listening to and taking direction from, also very connected to survival and certain coping mechanisms usually. And but usually that voice is slower to respond because it has to think about and process through all the different scenarios and then come up with a logical, rational, it's managing all of this data. Whereas intuition, it knows, it feels, it's there right away, usually, like right there. And so I don't see how technology will ever replace that. But again, I can see that the AI built with an ethical intention is going to help us, again, clear out this bandwidth that the mental, the critical, analytical, logical mind that's been overly developed to manage all this data, we might not have to do that anymore. And then we're going to have more access to more of our subtle body and intentions coming from, probably different sources than people are used to listening to. And again, I just see this allowing a lot more space for a creative capacity, a new vision, new ways of being, just we're going to have a lot more energy freed up.
And I know you're psychic, Sydney, but it's almost like you were in the conversation I just had. Where we were talking about intuition. And I said, it's, your intuition because you're not thinking about it. It's not something that's in your mind that you've got to take a minute. It's the thing that comes to you immediately, and you don't normally get it in your mind. It's in your gut, like it's that inner knowing. And if you can master that and not think about it, not try, it just should flow straight to you. And that's basically what you're saying. It's like you were in that conversation.
You're getting it. We're tuning in to the same frequency.
Now, I've been doing this show for over 5 years now, And
Oh,
when it started, one of the things that I always used to say is, that we are one, regardless of the fact that you're in New York and I'm in Brisbane. What I do today impacts your tomorrow. And so energetically, we're all in that same wavelength, aren't we?
I love that. Yeah, I mean, where do you want to go with this? I mean, I agree completely. Like we're all energetic beings. We're all connected. We're deeply connected to this planet. We're all a network. We're all an ecosystem. We're all one organism. Absolutely.
And a lot of people say, when they have conversations with me on this show, and they are conscious and aware, which most people are on this show, is they're like, they can actually feel the energy from here. So you and I are like a world apart, but you're picking up that energy right now, I'm picking up yours. And it's like we're in the same room, but we're on the opposite side of the planet.
Aw. And I love technology for this. I love that we can get on Zoom or we can be on even like a social media or like a live and totally we're transcendent, like these ideas of time and space, they're made up constructs. They're like, ways the mind developed itself to be able to measure and control. And, some of the most impactful healing experiences I've had and just deep connections I've had, are people like, yeah, totally all across the world. I was just on a group call with some of my training students and we're all over the world. And we were meditating in silence for a couple minutes together and to also like long call. It was amazing. And then we were like, let's just sit in silence for 7 minutes and really just like feel such a palpable, we can feel each other's presence so palpably. And that's such a gift.
And, you do a lot of work with leaders and developing their empathic, abilities and also dealing with their energy so that they can manage themselves and others. And you're also talking about toxic workplaces and all that kind of stuff. And it's 2024. This stuff is worse than it's ever been, from what I'm seeing. How can we start to make a change in this space by tapping into our energy and being a bit more, empathic with each other?
Yeah. It's honestly, it's like the real epidemic right now, after the last couple of years and the pandemic and people being so isolated and remote work. I mean, there's been also some really amazing transformation of like remote work and people becoming entrepreneurs and nomads and it's not all black and white. But also, yeah, it's like it's 2024. What are we doing, you guys? Like, are we capable of such a different experience? And so, I mean, the first thing is, the people that are asking that type of a question, how are you taking care of yourself? Looking around and you're feeling the reality of toxicity or whatever's going on, just unhealthy environment, and you see it. My question to you would be, how do you first and foremost take care of yourself? Like, what do you need to be resourced, to feel more stable, to feel more supported? And then only from a more resourced, really stable place, do you want to support like shifting and changing the environment that you might find yourself in or no? Or is it like maybe time? I just see this with so many people I work with, they want to entrepreneurs and they want to change the world and they want to change the company and I'm like, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Because so many people that have that leader archetype and who want to support and want to help and want to caretake and are just some of the most genuine, loving, creative people can also have the shadow of taking care of everyone else before they take care of themselves. And this is actually where so much of the toxicity is rooted, and culturally in workplaces where people are. It's like the shadow of the caretaker can actually be the controller, right? And the person that is trying to micromanage and like really doesn't have effective communication and isn't trusting people. And so, it's not an obvious resolution, but I just see it so much where, as leaders, we have a responsibility to really take care of ourselves as best we can. And also to like really get to know ourselves and to understand, what do I need to thrive? What do I require? On all levels, on a personal level, on an emotional level, on an energetic level, like within my career, within my purpose, within my profession, what do I really require to thrive? And as a leader, I'm responsible for really knowing that. I should know myself. I should know exactly what I need. I should have people, relationships, resources set up in my life that enable me to feel that support. And then when I'm really supported and resourced, then I can, be really responsible for other people in a good way and in a clear way. So that's number one. And then yeah, energetically, through organizations, again, I just see something that is really useful is for teams to get together and also to have support and facilitating. We could call it offsites or, team retreats or just bringing in outside support and outside help to really have deeper dive conversations with their, it can be the fellow executive team, it could be the managers. Depends on the organization size. It's, would be relatively unique depending on the context, but just generally something I see that is so useful is bringing in, intermediaries to help support. It's almost like coaching. It can be coaching for your team, but to be done in a way where the whole team can receive and where the leaders that are used to facilitating those kinds of things for the team, they can actually be a part of this like collective visioning experience where they're not managing, they can be held by someone else that's there to help facilitate, vision, values, mission, redefinition, these kinds of things. And even in something so simple as like redefining your mission statement, I mean, so many unconscious patterns and things can come up to really, frankly, to clear, to heal, within the team. A business has so much, in common with family dynamics at times, right? And it's not a family. But when we come to a business with unhealed trauma from growing up in our family dynamics, the business can turn into, at times, some of the same dysfunction that we grew up with. And we don't want that.
Yeah. And for me, sometimes it's a bit like going back to high school, it's, people are just behaving like teenagers sometimes. And I'm curious to know, can lasting change happen in a toxic workplace for the better?
It's a really important question. I want to say yes. The optimist in me is like, it is possible, but also the realist, wow. I can't give you an example of a really toxic workplace that has turned around. I personally, I'd love to know if anyone else has an example that comes to mind. Have you ever seen that?
Nope. People generally leave or it just gets worse. There's no Band-Aid that I know of that can, deal with all the issues in a place like that.
Most companies shut down. I work with a lot of founders. I love, for whatever crazy reason, I love to work in the early stage startup space. It's like totally wild. It's such a high adrenaline and maybe because I see the potential for that space to actually be such a catalyst for healing, because there's such high stakes and you can work with smaller, more mobile, agile, and usually innovative teams that are really open to new ways of, collaborating. So I love early stage startups, but the truth is most of them like fail or like high percentage, 80%, maybe more fail. And mostly I've seen, and in my own experience with business partners and as a founder, I've seen it firsthand. Most of the companies fail because the co-founders have some kind of trauma bond or rupture, and they just can't get over themselves. I've literally gone through this where I can't get over it to, heal and move forward. And so I'm sure this is like, amplified beyond measure. And when we look at like the corporate scale, when you have so many more dynamics and also, like, another thing I've noticed that's coming up to say is like, and maybe you've seen this, that, people can create entire businesses out of a trauma, out of a desire to heal, out of a desire to solve, to resolve something that they've struggled with their whole lives. But they're doing this, it's like an outward attempt at resolving something that is actually something within, and they're creating a business and generating all this success as almost a deflection and a distraction from actually taking responsibility to do the inner work that can be so overwhelming and so terrifying, but ultimately, like, I see that happen a lot.
Yeah, I see leaders who obviously have to do that inner work and they haven't, and they're not confident in themselves, they don't believe in themselves, so then they project that out onto other people where they don't trust them, they micromanage them, all of that kind of stuff. So, but it really is them that needs to actually heal that trauma. And as you were talking then, I could just picture, in corporate workspaces, imagine if we had these coaches or healers that were in the workplace and actually took those people aside and said, let's go heal some stuff. Imagine how that would change a workplace.
I love this vision. I think it's starting to happen more. More companies are becoming more aware that, even these terms like resilience and emotional intelligence, we didn't hear this talked about 10 years ago. And now it's more, especially after the pandemic, these terms are more, in our awareness, and they're credible. It's more, common knowledge that, hey, when you have a resilient team and you have emotionally intelligent managers and you have trust built within a culture and more of a sense of shared ethics and really clear values, people tend to not only enjoy their jobs more, but they're actually more productive and effective and efficient. And that translates positively to revenue most
Absolutely.
often.
Yeah. I mean, it's the heart of success, isn't it, really? And I also see that there's a lot of talk nowadays about mental health as well. And they talk it, but they don't walk it. Do you know what I mean? Where they don't hold a space for people to actually let go of some things, And I've worked in mental health for the last 2 years, and people, like, if they're just given the space, that is all they need. And in corporate workplaces, they're not given that. And so that's where they then hide and these things fester. And I just think we need to double down on healing and wellness within workplaces, because that ultimately is going to be the heart of success.
Oh, I love this vision so much. I mean, some of my visions hopefully we're not too far away. Sometimes it feels like we're very far away, but I love this vision of just, more integration, like so much of my journey has been about decompartmentalizing, and just learning to feel safe to be all of myself wherever I show up. And I think something that's challenging with a lot of the corporate structure, there's boundaries in place for good measure, and there's certain things that really work for a business, to have certain boundaries in place where people can just be really empowered to focus on their role and their job at hand. And then there's also this tension of, we're emotional, energetic beings, lives. We're whole human beings with also, creative aspirations and like higher purpose and spirituality. And where does that fit in? Like how does the workplace evolve to really allow more of our whole selves to be there and to be integrated and not compartmentalized? Because so much of the mental unwellness, comes in my experience from the compartmentalization and feeling like you have to hide, you're not welcome, you can't say what you really want to say, just a lot of disempowerment and fragmenting, and so I like this vision of having, I wonder if companies even have this. I think it has to do with the founders and the CEO setting the tone and just normalizing as well through their own example. Like, I have an energy healer. Yeah, I have a therapist. Yes, I do this, and I have a coach, and I am seeing that more. And in terms of like in the office or within the ecosystem of a company, like having access to an energy healer, an intuitive guide, or you could even call, some companies call it a performance coach. Like on that show, one show that demonstrated that really well was the show Billions. Have you seen that show?
Yes.
So good.
Yes.
I love the show so much. And it's like this high power, like super stressful New York, like hedge fund. But they have a performance coach who's actually this she's also a dominatrix in the show, which I love. but she's like this, doctor. She's a psychotherapist, like doctor. And all the different, the staff or these like high stakes finance guys, get to go work with this person for energetic support, and call it whatever you want, but that's energy healing and support. And so I love that as an example, and maybe that's like a starting point.
That's such a great example. I love that show. But yeah, I don't know, maybe we're onto something. Maybe and it's funny with what you've just said there, like, and they talk about wellness and all this kind of stuff, but we don't look at our energy, do we? It plays such a big part in who we are as a human and how we're impacted and how we impact others. We go to the doctor for this, that, the other. We might get a massage, whatever it might be. But what about our energy? No, there's no, it's not part of the equation. Why do we do that?
Sometimes, depending on who I'm talking to, I don't even use certain words because I just know that certain words will just turn someone off completely to even being open to listening, because there's such an indoctrination, frankly, within, the patriarchal system, especially in business and just capitalism, where, there's an intentional disempowerment of more feminine ways of being and subtle ways of being and more attuned ways of being. And I, my feeling is people are just scared of being intimate and real because they don't have the capacity to, feel at the level of depth that, I think everybody wants to feel closeness and the capacity for love and intimacy and depth. I think it's a human need. And, a lot of people didn't get that when they were younger and didn't have healthy role models or examples of that. And then you can grow up and become very successful and a certain, archetype, especially, again, I'm just speaking from my experience growing up in the Western world and cities like San Francisco and New York and in startup culture, there's a certain archetype that is really promoted as being, the successful leader and the way of being. And it's this like kind of strong, austere, masculine, non-feeling, non-emotional way of being, and very stern. And we associate that with powerful. All of this, by the way, are different energetic dynamics. Power, presence, charisma, these are energies. These are ways you attune your nervous system to becoming a felt presence in which people trust you to give them direction that they then follow and listen to and are accountable to, right? Like it's all energy. This is all energy work. But if I were to say it's energy work to certain people, they'd completely shut off. So I use words like, well, do you want to cultivate, your confidence and your presence and, empower even like the word empowerment can sometimes be a little bit of a gray area where people are like, I don't know, that sounds a little bit, it's like, not serious. Is that practical? But again, more and more people are waking up to this because it works. But usually, I have to say, it can come through a crisis or a moment of awakening, like a moment of clarity, where usually something bad happens in someone's life and they're like in their business or, things aren't working or there's stagnation, of some kind. And then that will be an awakening for someone to be like, wait a minute, what's actually going on here? It's not this analytical, logical thing that I figure out with my mind. What is it in me that is actually creating this stagnancy or this miscommunication or what's happening? Eventually, we all have to look at ourselves in the mirror.
Yeah.
And then you can drop the judgment of certain terminologies.
No, you're so right, because a couple of years ago, I used to do a lot of sound healing. So I would see this healer. We're really great friends. We actually used to do a podcast together. And she absolutely changed my life. Like I became a whole different person, like letting go of all of that stuff and clearing that out. And since then I've become a meditation teacher and all of that kind of stuff. And I don't hide that stuff in the corporate space. People like see it all and they're like, oh my God, you do meditation? And like if you drop the meditation word, people accept that. If you talk about energy healing, they're like, I think you're talking about snake oil now. It's like you use different terms and it's for their comfort, really, isn't it? Like, and whether they'll accept it or not, but it's all the same thing, really, isn't it?
It's all the same stuff. Honestly, it's actually been so nice. Like I think years ago, I had more of an ego attachment to like being, like there's like a specialness, like
Yeah.
I'm an energy healer. Ooh. And then it would almost feel like I knew it would be triggering and people would be like, what is that? And now people are like, oh, like, are you a yoga teacher? Like the people I don't really know yet. And they're like, are you you seem like a yoga teacher. And I'm like, yeah, and I am a yoga teacher, but I'm like, yeah, totally. And because there's no convincing, and people are only able to relate at the level that they're at the, whatever time that you're connecting. And so, I mean, something I've been really, work to cultivate in myself is just to kind of like get out of the way, right? And like, how can I be of service? Like, how can I help? And then how can I, part of that can sometimes be, what's the language that you speak? This is empathy, right? This is like, and this is actually something that is really helpful to cultivate as a leader that is trying, when you're trying to communicate to a broad group of people, what's the language that you can use to really meet people where they're at and speak their language. Like, it's not about you. It's not about proving anything about yourself. It's about coming to a shared understanding. And so if meditation is more of the common language, then totally. And we're talking about the same thing, but it's in a language that, more people will understand and accept.
Now, you're an author as well as all the other things that you do. You're a bit like me. You're like a Swiss Army knife. But with one of your books, you talk about empathy. And would you say that empathy is at the heart of connection as humans?
Oh, that's such a great question. Yeah, of course.
And that's what
Yeah.
makes us better leaders, right? Is if we can connect with people, then we can relate and we can collaborate a lot better, can't we?
I mean, why else are we alive?
Yeah, right.
Honestly, I just sometimes, I mean, and I understand, like it's a lot to be alive, we've all been through a lot, just being human on this planet, it's a lot. Not to mention if you want to build a business and lead people and be responsible for like changing the world and create, operating at a really high level and just having a lot going on. But yeah, like why else are we alive? Like I'm here to really deeply connect to myself, my own like deep being, like my being, my depth. That's like what I want most of all. I want to feel, I use the word God, source. Like I want to feel connected to source. I want to feel like fully alive and awake. Like I want to see what my body is capable of and what my intuition is capable of and just like be in the game. Like this is a game that we're here to really play and enjoy. And then I want to be available for really deep, enriching, nourishing, expansive, inspiring connection with other people that feel really good to be around. And even with people that don't feel great to be around, but that I can learn from, hopefully less so them right now, but but it's like, it's all for like the joy. I mean, life to me is about that. It's like the joy of connecting, with ourselves and each other. I mean, how about you?
We're 100% on the same page. Absolutely. Like I've actually been writing a book about connection. So because it's all of the stories from this podcast, right? So,
Oh my gosh. And I hope in your book you're talking about like the crisis of like true connection, right? We have all these like fake modalities of connection with technology and social media and like TikTok, and people are addicted to their phone and like and we think we have these like superficial, we're so connected. We've never been more connected in a certain way, but we're actually more lonely than ever.
Absolutely.
And so it's like this bizarre paradox.
Yeah, it is crazy. And we talk about connection, but people don't truly understand it anymore. I believe since the pandemic anyway. I think that whole understanding of who we are and how we interface with other people has changed since the pandemic. And, this show started right before the pandemic, and I have seen just the shift in people since it. And some people get it, other people don't. And the people that don't mostly aren't on this show, can I just say. But, talking about energy and connection, Sydney, one of the things that I talk about often on the show, and you might not know this because you found me, I didn't find you, is that any of the guests that I invite to be on this show, I energetically read them before I even talk to them. So I know I'm going to have an amazing conversation before I even sit down. And that's basically how this show came to be, is because I can read the energy in people, and I know whether they're conscious and they're aware and they're actually here, whether they're alive and awake in that meat suit or not. And that's basically how this all works.
That's so cool. It's a good way to do it.
Yeah. And, we're all about creating change as well in this show. And I'm curious to know from your point of view, what kind of focus are you going to have in the next year to create change?
I'm constantly creating, seeking to create and receive guidance to transform. And constantly, my whole life is transformational, like every moment. I'm like, can I have a break, please? No. I want to share what's present now. I mean, it's pretty vulnerable, but that's just where I'm at. I'm going through, I've just been here before, and I'm like, again, and it's just deeper we go. There's just infinite layers of the same patterns I know, and just deeper layers are here, and I'm being really challenged to talk about connection, honestly. A big part of my life has been recovery, started with sobriety from drugs and alcohol, but in community, like not alone. And really, like the root of my addictions is loneliness.
Yeah.
It was like coping with drugs and alcohol, but insert, negative self-talk, critical thinking, like checking out, like disassociate. I mean, anything. We're all addicted to something.
Yeah.
Just being human, right? It's like, it's a lot to feel. And it's like, and the antidote to addiction for me is connection. And so I'm being challenged right now in my life to create new community and resource that I can trust to hold me for where I'm at now. And then there's a layer of complexity I've self-created as a healer, as a teacher, as a coach, as this person that's written books and taught all over the world and done all this stuff. And that can be isolating.
Yeah.
Suddenly, not suddenly, but, I've created kind of a experience at times where, everyone's coming to me, and I'm a great caretaker, and I love being of service. I'm so comfortable doing that. I will do it forever. I love it. It's who I am. But then it can be really challenging to come out of that isolation. It can be isolating just to be always the healer and the teacher. And it can be really vulnerable to come out of that into like, wait a minute, like I need support too.
Yeah.
And who can support me? And I've also even had compartmentalization of like, I go to this healer or this person. And so something I've been just trying to actively cultivate more, and I will for the next year and for the rest of my life, is more community. And outside of also my professional community, different types of spiritual community, different, even inviting some of my clients, my students who are all fantastic, leaders, healers, they're the best in the world, and just creating more space to also relate to them, to get help, to get support from these people, in some cases who I've trained and I've guided, and I'm like, can you help me now?
Exactly right. And I can so relate to that because I'm exactly the same. It's like, you're doing all these creative things, and that alone sometimes can be isolating as well with the kind of modalities we deal with. But then it's our turn. It's like, what about me? Like I need it too. So it's like, yeah. And then when you do become vulnerable to people and you go, well, I kind of need this support too. And they're like, but you got all your shit together. It's fine. It's like, not always. And it's those people that are of service and that are the healers and the teachers are the ones who need it the most.
Amen. And also, I mean, yes. And there's something there because those are all the people I've always gravitated towards supporting, and my clients, people I just love to hang out with. And I'm like, how do we create more space to just like cry together? And
Yes.
and just honestly, that's like kind of what we did yesterday. And then it's wraps into like, it's not so separate from, the CEOs and the founders. Like it can be so lonely. I'm giving this whole workshop on Wednesday this week to the Alchemist Accelerator, which is an awesome global accelerator. They're kind of like a Y Combinator and Techstars. And I'm giving a whole workshop on this, like energetic optimization for founders. But a piece of it is also going to be around, you don't have to be a lone wolf. Part of energetic optimization is to have your support team and really consciously like construct your team, just like your company has its advisory board.
Yes.
These things we don't even think twice about, like, oh, here's our investors, here's our advisory board, like here's the executive team. But who is your support team? Like for you as a leader, like what do you need? Again, it comes back to what we said before, like what do you need? And then knowing who you need on your team to really help you, because it takes a village. You're not supposed to do this alone. And sometimes, especially, I mean, when you're really seeing, I say, when you see the future that doesn't exist yet, and you know that you're the one here to create it, it can be so lonely.
Yeah.
Especially if you have any like people pleasing stuff, or, the visionary shadow of like, I need to be understood. But nobody's going to understand because you're the only one that sees it, and you're supposed to create it and build it. And you might be 100 years ahead of your time. And this is why you're here. And so people like this especially need the most support.
Yeah. I'm just saying you and I have some incredible ideas. I think we need to collab on something. I think there's a change we're going to make ourselves. Now, Sydney, you're a fascinating human. If people want to find out more about you and get in touch, where can you go?
I mean, everything's on my website, just my name, sydneycampos.com. And then I have Instagram. I've just started a new like YouTube channel, mostly like meditations and stuff there. Those are the best spots.
Fantastic. Now, this last question I ask everyone on the show, but I've almost half asked it already, but let's just try the formal one. What's the change you'd like to see in the world, and how can we bring it to life?
Honestly, what comes up is I want to see, let's say this, I can't wait to see when more leaders are really allowing themselves the support that they deserve, to feel welcome, to be exactly who they really are, and to really communicate, to create, to lead from that depth of authenticity and wholeness that just creates immediate safety and trust all around them and in everything they make. That just ripples through the whole planet. And I just know from there we start to have a completely new experience of reality, and we start to really free up our energy to create and build and receive that which we know we deserve.
And it's such a freeing feeling to live in that truth and authenticity, isn't it? And that's the true change, isn't it?
It's an inside job.
Always is. Sydney, I have loved every second with you. Thank you so much for being a part of the Ethical Evolution.
I'm so grateful to meet you. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Ethical Evolution podcast. If you're ready to be the change and would love to work with me on finding your voice through spiritual coaching or creating your own podcast with impact, visit ethicalchangeagency.com. If you're enjoying the show, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's growing every day with great content and highlights you may not have heard on the podcast. In addition, please subscribe to the podcast on Spotify or Apple, and why not leave a 5-star review? If you're not following me on social media, you can find me at Ethical Change Agency on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook and YouTube, and at DJ Bindi on TikTok and Instagram.
Hi, I'm Sherilyn Fenn from Twin Peaks. What did you do on your last Saturday night?
Did you hear something?
Toilet paper.
There's nada. The reserves have gone dry.
People are hoarding it. I should have done that.
They're all out of hand sanitizer at my Target.
Mark, when did you last watch the news?
We are getting reports of forced quarantines in China, Japan, and now Italy.
You're cutting onions in half and putting them around your apartment.
Yes, exactly. It kills the COVID.
Excuse me?
Let's go, get in.
Vamos, rápido.
Have you ever driven one of these?
Never.
I'll drive, ladies.
I've got the keys.
Excuse me, I'm lost. I'm looking for my wife. I got turned around.
Join me, Eric Roberts, Jennifer Elise Cox, and Ed Asner for The Last Saturday Night, an Electrocast podcast. You'll love it.
Electrocast.
Hi, I'm Geraldine Glass, and I'm excited to share a new healing music offering, an extended version song called Joy Reboot, a unique fusion of pop, classic, rap, soundscapes, and funk to inspire collaboration and bring unity through sound. For us, Joy Reboot is music medicine, out now with Electrocast Records.
Electrocast.